So welcome everybody to the March 2017 Presidents and Leaders Roundtable meeting. My name is the Reverend David Pyle. I am the Governance Program Manager for the Central East region of the UUA. And amazingly today, because we're on a UUA staff retreat at the moment, I'm not hosting this meeting all by myself in my home office. So we'll say hi to the rest of the staff that's here with us in just a moment. But it's good to have you all here with us today. I'm going to unmute everybody for a second and hit our share screen. For our chalice lighting reading. And our chalice lighting reading at the beginning of this meeting is our a quote by Adrian Rich. "My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have cast my lot with those who age after age, perversely and with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world." So thank you all for coming to be your part and participating in our faith tradition that helps reconstitute the world. I'm grateful that you all are here with us today. So the purpose of this meeting is to offer a regularly scheduled opportunity for congregational leaders to connect with the UUA Central East Regional staff. It's to share a few good ideas monthly with all congregational presidents and leadership, to build community between the leaders of the congregations of the Central East region of the UUA, and for the Central East Regional staff to hear directly from congregations what is important to you, and to aid in developing programming and capacity building training. So any questions about our purpose? Anything we need to add? And I know I need to unmute before we can do that. So 1 second. I am unmuting everyone. So is there anything we need to add to our purpose of our time together? No? Well, thank you all. I'm going to mute us again for a second. So our agenda is to have a chalice lighting and welcome, which we just have, talk about the purpose of this call, introduce our featured UUA staff member, Norrie Gall, we'll also introduce the rest of the regional staff that is gathered here, to talk a little bit about some upcoming events on the Central East Regional calendar, talk a lot about the talk again about the April 1st Leadership Day and the UUA presidential debate. And Megan, we may ask you to name a thing or two about that if you want, just as a heads up. And then we're going to have a conversation with Norrie Gall about the annual program fund and its changes and a presentation. And I think Norrie's going to be able to take some questions. Hope that's not too much pressure there, Norrie. And then we want to hear from you. And the question we're going to be asking for you to engage with us on and engage with each other on is, what dynamics are you seeing in your congregational stewardship? So just letting you know that beforehand so you can be thinking about it. And remember, when we do have that conversation, I'll name it again. We ask you to unmute yourself, share a little bit, and then remute yourself. And for those of you that are on the phone, if you could use your mute feature on your phone when you're in that when we're in that part of the section, and then we'll have some closing words. So with that, I bring us to introducing our Central East Regional Congregational Life featured staff member. I'm going to stop our share for a minute, and I'm going to unmute Norrie. And Norrie, would you be willing to introduce yourself to us?
I am absolutely willing to. How is my volume okay?
It's good from our end. Everybody can give me a thumbs up?
Okay, well, greetings from my basement lair. That's how I always feel in my home office. I am the Congregational Giving Manager. I have been at the UUA for almost 5 years now, and you may know me from other titles like the Annual Program Fund Assistant. So I've been in the Office of Congregational Giving and Stewardship and Development for my entire tenure with the UUA, and I look forward to talking with you all about what will be changing for the region this year, this coming year for fiscal year 2018, and I can give a little insight into what we know about the future. And I work out of the office in Boston, and I live on the North Shore of Massachusetts, which I know there's more than one North Shore, but I am in Beverly, which is next to Salem. And I am a member of First Parish, the only First Parish there is. No, First Parish. It's my favorite joke. We're 350 this year, though, so that's kind of exciting. But I am a member of First Parish, and I live with my lovely 7-year-old daughter, who is being entertained by a babysitter right now. So fingers crossed that will be it.
Well, thank you, Norrie, and we'll come back to you again in a few minutes. But I wanted to take a moment to introduce the members of the regional staff that are here together in the room with me. And if we could say our name and where we normally live when we're not in Lewis, Delaware, and one or two of our roles, our program manager roles or something like that. Does that work? So I'll start off. I'm David Pyle. I live usually in Wilmington, Delaware, and among my program manager roles, I am the governance program manager. I also run the adjunct consultant program, and I have arts of ministry, which is kind of worship, pastoral care, and committees on ministry. So with that, Pat, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I'll step up. I'm Pat Infanti, and I live in New Jersey, so I'm up in the northern part of the former JPD. I am a program manager for faith development, stewardship in the congregation, and safe congregations.
And Andrea?
Hi, I'm Andrea Lerner, and I live in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and my program manager areas are associational giving, which includes the annual program fund and chalice sliders, and also ministerial transitions.
And Megan?
Hey all, I'm Megan Foley. I live outside of Washington, D.C. in Silver Spring, Maryland, and my program areas are regional leads, so I manage this motley crew, and also smaller congregations.
And Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth Casebold. I live in St. Clairsville, Ohio, so right outside of the Pittsburgh metropolitan area and across the border from West Virginia. I am the operations manager, so I oversee the administrative staff, and I also handle social media and communications.
So everybody say hi to the staff. You're muted, so you can't do that, but you can wave your hands and stuff. So I'm going to unmute everybody for a second, and it'll take me a second to do that because I'm still getting used to how this new version works. So I'm unmuting everybody because I want us to be able to say aloud. So if you are living, if you're from Northern Virginia, give it a shout out. Northern Virginia, anybody?
No.
No.
Someone's dog.
That's the point. How about the Washington D.C. cluster area?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we got that. Yeah. So anybody from Delaware?
Yay!
You're from Delaware. How about Maryland?
Maryland too.
Maryland.
How about
Yeah.
Pennsylvania?
Yay!
Pennsylvania. Anybody from West Virginia? We keep trying. All right. How about Ohio?
Yes. Yes.
You're from Ohio? Yeah. New York.
Hello.
New York.
All right. And how about anyone from Connecticut? And how about New Jersey? So, we do that just so we can continue to hear what the area of our region is. So I'm going to mute us all again for a second while I talk for a few minutes.
I still haven't figured out it gives clues. Like, I don't know how to mute myself. You always...
So, and for those who may not have a mute, if you're on a phone, you should, if you hit the button, if you hit the screen, there should come up an option for you to mute yourself on the phone. So I'm going to share screen for a second so we can talk about upcoming programming. So I am when I can get everything to work right. There we go. All right. And it flies away. So this is just, I'm not going to bring up the page again, but I just like to mention every time that we have this, whenever you want to know about congregational events that are coming up, in past meetings, I've brought up the website and walked everybody through the website. But just to know, uua.org/centrale/events. And on there is a calendar of all of the regional events. And it comes in two forms. It's both a calendar, and then there's also a list version. And you can, am I right that it's also searchable at least at some level? You can go in there if you want to know about OWL trainings, you could put in OWL and it'll search. Am I right about that, Beth?
And there's a new feature that's just been added that technically you should be able to search calendars based on your location if you have geolocation turned on your device.
Yeah, so you can see what events are close to you. So just to say, that's a resource to continue to check. We, your primary contacts for your congregations, will continue to send out events to you, to your leadership, and to your your congregational contacts for us. But also know you can always go there and check. And we have some other wonderful communications, including, what is it called? Our newsletter?
Our Opportunities for Connection is our newsletter. It comes out the end of each month, usually 27th to the 29th. And anyone who is a congregational leader who you have told the UUA is a congregational leader is subscribed to that. But you can also add your subscription yourself at our website.
So just to say that, but there's a few I wanted to name that we have upcoming. The first off, I'm sticking with webinars for this big event because, except for big major events, because this meeting crosses our entire region, it's webinars that all of us could access. So there are likely events that are in locations near you that you can find, but these webinars are coming up. We have a who you gonna call, the Faith Development Office webinar that is being done. Pat, do you know anything about that one you could share?
Yes, so Jan Gardner and Pat Kahn are both working on things like the RE credentialing program and some of the faith development. There's some crossover between the work that they do. Jan does a lot with transitions and staff compensation, and so they're kind of going to untangle that a little bit for the audience.
So that's wonderful. There's also the best annual budget drive ever webinar, which is part 1 is coming up on April 24th, and part 2 is coming up on May 1st. So are there any finance people on our call today? You wave your hands if you can.
Tom's a finance guy.
There's a few. So finance and stewardship, those are some great webinars. We also have a bunch of youth webinars that are in process. One on communications and social media that was actually last week. I should think of that. There's a youth webinar on youth inclusive multi-generational congregations on April 12th, and a youth webinar on models of youth ministry Wednesday, May 10th. So for your youth advisors and youth leaders, know that those are also resources that are available. And we have another one that's not, I mean, it may be for you all, but this is something to think about for any members of your staff who are supervisors, who are supervising, because I'll tell you, I mean, I have some supervision experience, but I certainly didn't learn it in seminary, right? So for this is kind of an HR course for ministers and religious educators and church professionals with one of the best known consultants in the field, the Reverend Susan Beaumont. And she's coming to Morristown, the Morristown UU Fellowship in New Jersey, May 4th and 5th. And I think we still have, how many slots do we think, Andrea?
About 20.
About 20 slots open for anyone so this is a great opportunity for your staff to be able to get kind of a good human resources course, a good crash course in human resources. Patricia Infante and I have both taken this course, and it is well worth it. Yeah, you and Andrea has. So, and then the last of the ads is the Leadership Day, which is coming up on April 1st. So I'm going to ask our regional lead, Reverend Megan Foley, to talk a little bit about the upcoming Leadership Day. I'll fill in things that you don't. So
great. Well, the important thing to know is that I think we have, 12 different sites, some large number of sites that you can be with a group of people and watch the live stream of the day, because we'll have the 3 candidates physically located in Bethesda, Maryland at Cedar Lane. So if you're in the DC area, feel free to come on over. We do ask you to register. It's a free morning for our event in Bethesda that I'll be attending with the candidates physically present. We're having the free morning with them. And then if you want to contribute $20, you can have lunch and stay for one of our 3 workshops in the afternoon, one of which is run by David Pyle, the other by Carrie McDonald, our Director of Outreach at the UUA, and the third by Bill Klontz from Stewardship for Us. So there's a nice, and David's is on pastoral care teams in times of trial. Carrie's is on managing change and change-resistant times and environments. And Bill's is on 21st century ways of thinking about stewardship. So there's a little something for everyone on site there. If you're not planning to drive all the way to Maryland, then check our website for a more local location, and you can find a group of friendly folks to watch the forum. And then there's, each one has a slightly different offering as in terms of what the rest of the day might look like. Does that cover everything?
I don't need to add a thing.
All right,
That's great. So I kind of put them all on the spot. I didn't tell them I was going to ask them to speak on the call. So that's my just being me. So with that, I want to bring up Norrie Gall. Norrie, are you still with us?
I absolutely
There you
am.
are. So
Yeah.
I'm about to stop share, and then I'm going to make you a host so that you can share your screen.
Okay.
So you are now the host. So you should be able to share screen. See if that
Okay.
works.
Let's give this a go.
If not, I have your presentation up.
Are we seeing my PowerPoint, folks?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I saw it just a little bit ago.
So if we give another minute, but I can
It's
always.
back. It's back.
You guys seeing it?
We
Yes.
don't.
Amplifying Unitarian Universalism, APF.
Correct.
Oh, that's my screen that they're seeing.
No, that's
It says here I'm viewing Norrie Gall's
Oh,
stream.
I know what I'm doing.
There you go.
That was me being wrong, not you.
All right.
You go ahead.
now I just want to alert you guys that I can't actually see you. So let me.
I can manage people. So
Okay, great. All right.
what we'll do is we will save up your questions, and we'll stop at occasional places, and I'll bring up the opportunity I'll unmute everyone, and we'll have the opportunity for people to ask questions.
That sounds
Okay.
great. Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and get started, Norrie?
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening to this and for being here. And thank you all for the generosity of your congregations. It's a pleasure to be talking with the Central East region. Your collective generosity is astonishing and something to be very proud of. You have a very high, if not the highest, incidence of honor congregations in the region, regionally in the association, and that's really significant. The annual program fund, I'll just say, is the primary source of programmatic funding for our UUA. So the annual program fund makes up about 56 to 58% of all of the income that the UUA receives. And that is most of the UUA's expenditures. I believe it's something like 76% of our expenses are directly for programming, and that includes regional, national, all different levels of programming. So thank you. About a month ago, I believe, you should have all received an email from the region talking about what will be changing in 2018 in terms of your pledge forms. And so I wanted to walk us all through that and make sure folks understood what was going on, take a chance to answer questions, and then I suspect that there is interest in what is happening association-wide with changes to the annual program fund, and I can speak a little bit to that with what I know and where we're headed. So I will get going. And so used to seeing everyone, so I might be looking for feedback, and just I'll keep moving. Okay.
Norrie, if
So-
at any time you want me to open it up for feedback, you just tell me that and I'll do that.
Okay. So first of all, I wanted to bring up this next year, your congregation is going to receive a pledge form that will have one line for you to indicate what your 2018 pledge is. And you will be sending in one gift to support the Central East region and the UUA. So it will actually say the UUA-CER, and this is what we call a single or unified ask. In the past, most of you have received pledge forms that will ask what the congregation is pledging for support to the annual program fund, and on a separate line, what the congregation is pledging to support what was your historic geographic district. The only exception historically was some Metro New York district, which did not do pledging in the same manner. But for quite some time, the majority of the Central East region has actually shared that mechanism with us. So we've sent out the pledge forms for both the district and the annual program fund on one sheet. So this year, instead of putting two numbers for what you will be pledging, you will put one number. The amount that you'll be asked is based on the current annual program fund rate, which is $60 per member. And that has actually stayed level for the past few years, as we're really trying to help bring congregations, bring everybody up to honor standing and improve attainment association-wide. Large congregations in the association will continue to have the option of either contributing based on the $60 per member rate or 4.3% of certified expenditures. And I will just note, I've yet to see any congregation pick the higher of the two, but I can guarantee you something spectacular should yours plan to do that. So on the pledge form, there will be a line that will say, this is calculated for this year, 200 members times 60, that's your APF portion. The regional rates, and I should probably, am I going too fast? Should I stop there for questions?
Let's open it up for questions for a second, if that's all right. So
Absolutely.
let me bring up the necessary screen for that, and I will unmute everyone. Oh, wait a minute, I can't because I made you the host. You have to unmute everybody. So if you click on participants.
All right, everyone, you're unmuted.
There we go. So are there any questions for Norrie? Wow. That's pretty neat. All right, so why don't we go ahead and remute? You can mute us, Norrie, and take us back into the presentation. And we are not seeing your, there you go, you're bringing it back.
I'm muted. So were there any questions about that? Okay, just kidding. So this, I wanted to go over what the giving rates for each of your congregations will be, and they're going to be based on the geographic area of the historic district. So if your congregation is in Bethesda and you are in the parameters of the Joseph Priestley district and you have less than 550 members, you'd be asked to contribute a total of $88 per member in 2018. So $28 is the historic JPD giving rate, and that has not changed. That was the same rate last year, and again, $60 for annual program fund. For folks in the St. Lawrence area, the historic St. Lawrence district, there's a slight increase. So instead of contributing 2.42% of reported expenses for the district, it will be 2.5% of reported operating expenses, and towards the region, and $60 for the annual program fund. For Metro New York, the rates are staying the same again, and that would be $29 per, sorry guys, not of reported operating expenses, but of reported members. And I'm sorry, that's confusing. I will fix that. And then congregations located within the geographic area of the historic Ohio Meadville district will be asked to contribute $26 per reported member and $60 for annual program fund. And that reflects a $1 increase per member for the folks in the Ohio Meadville district towards regional support. And you can see that those are pushing up incrementally to bring everybody kind of into the same space. What it will look like on your pledge form, you'll see the two calculations and then the single number. If you return a pledge and you put on your pledge, we want, $1,000 to go to the region and $2,000 to go to the UUA, that won't matter. What you pledge as a sum is going to be distributed based on percentage using historic funding for the region. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that even if you modify your pledge document to indicate that you don't want it to be you don't want the distribution to be reflective or as it's delineated by the association and the region, then it won't matter. And the same. So I'm not sure what the distribution percentage will be exactly, but the idea is that it will provide funding to continue to support the region, hopefully in growth, and the association sustainably. So I'm going to pause there, and I will...
You can unmute everybody. I wanted to add, if I could, that piece about what the percentage is that is the split between the region and the the district, the region and the National Association. That was a part of the negotiations related to regionalization.
Yes, and it's ongoing, so yeah. It's not just we're in conversation around that. It's not my office dictating what the distribution rate is at all.
And the regional leadership had a lot of voice in that decision. So are there any questions for Norrie?
Hello?
Hello, and tell us your name and what congregation you're from and ask your question.
I'm assuming it's up to me.
I believe so, yes.
Carter's St. Branch.
Hello, say it again. Is that Carol Carter Walker?
No, it's not. It's her sister.
Hi, Carmelita.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. What question might you have for Norrie?
I'm not sure of what our program fee would be. I heard her say something about JP region, which we were part of, and then she said something about the Bethesda. So I'm not sure what our fee would be. I want to know what our rate.
Right. Thank you, Carmelita. So Norrie, just so you know, this is a congregation from the Joseph Priestley District. So
okay.
You can answer that question.
Sure. So the rate will actually be dollar-wise the same as it was last year. It will be $88 total per member, which reflects $28 per member from the Joseph Priestley District historic rate and $60 for the annual program fund rate.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Carmelita.
welcome.
Any other questions for Norrie?
I have a question about, this
Just
is
tell us-
Becca.
There you go. And which congregation are you from, Becca?
I'm actually from the Joseph Priestley District, but I'm confused because it says on the slide, it says that the Ohio Meadville District is giving it a rate of 27 per member, and Norrie had said it was 26 per member. So I'm wondering which it is in the Ohio Meadville District.
Sure, it's 27 this year, which is an increase from last year when it was 26.
Okay.
No, she didn't.
Thank you, Becca. Who else might have a question for Norrie?
I have one.
Hello, can you tell us your name and what congregation you're from?
Hi, I'm Patty Doc Kansas. I'm also from Paint Branch in Maryland. So hi, Carmelita. And I'm just curious, like if a certain congregation does not pay the full $88 per member, say they pay half of that, or 44, does it still get allocated between the UUA and the local district, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I can speak to, if it's helpful, this is a model that we're currently doing in the New England region. So we did this last year with New England, and this year we're doing it with Central East. With New England, whatever the income is, 27% of what is given is distributed back to the region directly. So depending on what the ultimate distribution rate will be, and I suspect it will actually be higher than 27%, that percentage of any gift will go to the Central East region.
So does that get your question?
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Any other questions for Norrie? If there's not, we can go ahead and have Norrie mute us again and continue with the presentation. So Norrie, go ahead and mute us if you would. And unmute yourself.
Sorry. So the next piece, I just wanted to share the timeline. Not sure, I know that not everybody on this call is a finance person and people have different focus points, but I wanted to explain where the membership certification and the reported expenditures happen. Each year, the UUA has certification open from mid-November to the 1st of February. We use the numbers that are reported in certification to calculate in the UUA Central East request. So the number that your congregation reported for members as of February 1st, 2017 is used as the number to calculate the number of voting delegates you'll have at General Assembly, and it's also used to calculate the ask. If your congregation is in the St. Lawrence district or has over, is considered a large congregation with more than 550 or more members, then what you reported as certified expenditures at that time will be used to calculate your ask. So that, I just wanted to let you all know where we get those numbers from and how that ties together. We send the pledge forms out in the beginning of May in 2017. So within the first week of May, it should be arriving to the congregation. We ask that you return your pledge forms by the end of June. If there's a reason why that might not happen, please be communicative with us. If you aren't going to be voting on your budget until September, let us know and we'll we'll wait till then to ping you again. But it's helpful for us in terms of budgeting, in terms of everything really, to have that information in hand. And if there are questions about your pledge form, you can absolutely contact us anytime, especially between May 1st and I'm going to say June 16th. Right after June 16th, I will have more limited availability because I'll be at General Assembly, and you are more than welcome to come and talk to me at GA if you have questions as well. And then I just wanted to remind everybody that our fiscal year runs July 1 through June 30th. And I have learned in the course of my work that there are so many different possible fiscal years that congregations can honor. Some start April 1st, some start September 1st, some start in the start of the calendar year. What we ask you to pledge is what your congregation will be contributing during the course of our next fiscal year, our fiscal year 18, which starts on July 1st. So I just wanted to express that, and sometimes there are questions about that. So I will also pause right now and open it up and see if anyone has any questions.
So are there any questions for Norrie?
Okay, I'm going to mute you all again then. Okay.
And you are unmuted. That's great.
I am. I know. You may hear some cat chat. Just a heads up. Although I have my headphones in. So one thing I wanted to share with you, and I apologize if any of you are a member of the Generosity Network and I don't know that offhand, but we are, this is a good time to talk about what's happening with the annual program fund, how we can work with you, and what the future holds. So first of all, we have been building what we call the Generosity Network, which is a network of lay leaders and ministers in congregations who are empowered and supported in speaking with other congregations about the importance of congregational support of our UUA and the covenant between our congregations. We do have a few members from the Central East region. We can always use more. I personally don't manage the Generosity Network, so I will be happy to connect and answer questions that I can. But what we, in the past, we had in the Wayback Machine, and Andrea was on this team, we had the APF committee, which were volunteers across the country that were dedicated to each district to work with district on congregational giving to the annual program fund, and depending on the district, also to the district. That system stopped before I started, so almost 5 years ago. And we have spent the past 2 years working on the Generosity Network. What we are really hoping to do is help congregations understand the relational importance of supporting the UUA and being empowered to have those conversations with one another. So if that's something that piques your interest at all, please, please email me, and I will be more than happy to connect you with everybody who can help you. One of the other reasons why we are moving forward with the Generosity Network is because there is change afoot in the annual program fund. And I know that there's been great interest from this region about moving to an ask that is one ask that supports both the UUA and the region, but is not calculated based on membership. It's calculated based on expenditures. We have been running and I'm using air quotes here, but I don't think you can see, a pilot program in the southern region for, we'll be going into the 4th year, and it's less of a pilot program and more of a continuing experiment at this point, where we did move to that model. We learned an awful lot in that process, including that it takes a lot more to move to a model based on expenditures than just moving to a model based on expenditures. And I'll answer questions in a second, but just so everyone knows, there is a task force of the UUA board. It's called the APF task force. So it is comprised of board members and several lay leaders and UUA staff who are reviewing the data and historic giving from the association to districts, regions, and the annual program fund, and looking at what did and did not work and what is and isn't working with the gift program in the southern region, to find a model that will allow us to sustainably grow and maintain our association while also redistributing how we receive funding from our congregations. And the great news is that it can mean that some congregations will be asked to give less. The real learning is that no congregation can be asked to give less until those that are asked to give more are in a place to do so. So that's what we're really trying to figure out, how to be able to move people to higher participation in ways that does not just shift burden without giving any help. So I'm just gonna stop there, and I'm actually gonna, if it's okay, my next slide I think is just APF information and my email. And so I'm gonna stop sharing and open it up for questions, or turn it back over to David.
Well, and I can help you remember to unmute everybody. And if you're done with the slides, you could go ahead and turn it over to me, and I'll manage the muting and unmuting. So just click on my face and say make host.
That seems like a really religious thing.
You are now the host.
Yes. Okay.
So good. I am now the host. So who might have questions for Norrie related to anything that was presented, or even
David,
specifically? Go
David,
ahead.
I have a question.
And tell us who you are and what congregation.
Right, this is Howard Barkin from Bucksmont UU Fellowship in Warrington, PA.
Hello, Howard.
Hi. Good. Hi. So Norrie, that last thing you said in there, there was something about no congregation could be asked to give less until those that give more. That last thing you were saying, I didn't catch that. You started to say something like,
yeah.
Could you repeat that part again, please?
Of course. So, and I can put it in some context too. So what we learned with the gift program is that some congregations were asked to give significantly less. Some were asked to give significantly more. And those that were asked to give more was capped a bit. But just because we asked them in a different way to give more money than they had been giving did not mean that they had the capacity to do so. And so what happened was congregations who had a significantly reduced ask paid their reduced ask, and those that were asked to give a lot more but perhaps were already not contributing the full amount requested continued as they were. So it left a gap that we wouldn't be able to absorb nationally. It wouldn't be sustainable to have that happen. So what we're looking at is how can we move to a model that adjusts this, but in a way that doesn't sink all of our income for a year. If your congregation is a smaller congregation and 7% of your operating expenditures is a big drop, and you pay that dropped amount, that's great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the opposite is happening on the other end with folks that are being asked to give more. So that's what we're really
Right,
trying
okay.
to address.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that explanation. I get what you're saying now. Thanks.
Yep. So before we go to another question, just let you know, we're getting some feedback. I've looked at the system, and it's from people who are on the phone. So I've muted 2 numbers that are on the phone. If you could please on your phone, if you're called in, to use your mute button on your phone to be able to mute yourself, and I can unmute those numbers. The 2 that we're getting feedback from, 301-638-2236 and 202-236-8783. So if you could use your phone's mute button, that would be great. Thank you. So who else might have a question?
This is Carol Walker. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Carol. How are you?
Okay.
So you're from Paint Branch. So what's your question for Norrie?
Well, we're one of those congregations that's fallen off the wagon. We used to be fair share, and we're not. Does your staff, Norrie, or are there resources that we could use to try to get back on the wagon? You know, develop a plan
Yes,
to do that.
let's do that. I'm more than happy to start that conversation with you and connect you with my colleague Elizabeth Terry and the Reverend Vale Weller are both also great resources, but we can certainly. You know Vale or Elizabeth or both? So both of them.
I know Elizabeth is a better.
Yeah. So but we'd be more than happy to talk with you. And one of the reasons for doing calls like this is to build those connections and say, yeah, let's make a plan and incrementally get you back to that status. We'd love to help with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. I'm unmuting everybody again. Who else might have a question for Norrie? Remember to say your name and what congregation you're from.
Hi, can you hear me?
Is this Winnie McDonough?
Winnie McDonough, yes.
Hello, Winnie. Would you tell us what congregation you're from?
UU Congregation of York, PA.
PA, okay.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to understand why we decide to change from are trying to change from a dues structure based on every member to based on expenditures. To me, expenditures is harder to get your handle around, easier to manipulate, and the numbers are so easy for UUs who historically are not too good with financial issues. So what was
Norrie,
the motivation to change it?
Yeah, so those are some great questions. Let me see. So first of all, the decision, the aim of moving away from reported membership. So first of all, I just want to flag that there are many that feel that figure is malleable for congregations. As an association, we don't ask you how you define members. We say, please provide us with the number of eligible voting members in your congregation. So that can mean different things to different congregations. There's no uniform. Some congregations require a pledge, some don't. Some, there's nothing consistent about that. Secondly, a flat rate of $60 per member. We have quite a different geo index for paying our staff nationwide. If you look at the different rates for ministers based on congregation size or location, and that has a lot to do with the value of $1 in those places. So $60 in one area can be more dear than $60 in another area, and so that's another reason. There's a question of how fair that is, and you'll notice that I'm not using the phrase fair share. We've run away from that phrase because we recognize that it's not necessarily fair. And I will also note that this isn't a dues-based model. It is a per member request, but this is contributions. These are gifts, they're not dues. So, but if paying your dues is what gets you to contribute the full amount, then they're your dues. So I just want to say that. The other reason, there are a couple of other things. Number one, there's a belief, and this is actually played out in the southern region. So a positive in the southern region was when we took away the membership reporting as the mechanism for contribution, the membership numbers grew. So congregations could add youth members that maybe weren't full voting members, in part because there was, you know, congregations have different relationships with generosity. And so some might have suppressed membership or not counted people, or discouraged membership, a formal membership, because there was a perceived cost associated with that in terms of institutional support. So what we saw with the southern region was that while membership nationwide has been declining over the past few years, the southern region has experienced an increase in membership. So that's another reason. And then lastly, we didn't roll this out nationwide with everybody reporting operating expenditures all at once, but we have been doing it in the southern region. We did do it. We actually changed in 2012 from asking congregations to report their budgets to reporting their operating expenses. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, the financial health of the congregation can be pretty well reflected in your actual expenditures from the prior year. If you had to let go of a staff member, your expenditures are going to go down, and then your ask will go down. So it's a way for us to be more reflexive and ask congregations to support in ways that they can. We will definitely be having a number of webinars. I've hosted many at this point, but where we exclude operating expenditure, capital expenditure. So if you need a new roof, don't worry, you're not going to be pinged for getting a new roof or anything like that. And we exclude congregational contributions to the UUA-CER is what it will be for next year. So we're not going to ask for that. But because, you could have a financial challenge and still have the same number of members, so the request is going to stay the same. This is a more responsive way to meet congregations where they're at.
I'm a little concerned that one mechanism we stay real in terms of our membership number, that because we go through the annual exercise to review in preparation for the dues calculation, we keep our membership numbers realistic. And I have heard of churches who, for whatever reason, never did do that and had this escalated number that was unrealistic because the people weren't attending church. So there's two sides to the coin.
Well, there's all different things that happen, and it would be really difficult to manage. I also, I do want to point out that, because you mentioned, why was this decision made to move to this model? And so I came across a document this year that was very interesting, and it was a summary of Commission on Appraisals and other task force starting prior to my birth, with a recommendation starting in 1977, just prior, that the association moved to an ask that is calculated based on expenditures. And then a recommendation in 1990 that the association moved to an ask based on percentages, and so on and so on. And your region is unique in the fact that you actually have an entire district that has been doing this for quite some time. There's no other district outside of the southern region where people are contributing based on a percentage of expenditures, but the St. Lawrence district has been for quite some time, and I don't know exactly when that started, but
after I left St. Lawrence district.
It's pretty pervasive. Large congregations have the option of doing either one of those two, so it is there. It will, if you have concerns financially about how those numbers are reported, I'm here to answer your questions. And I can't emphasize enough that much like, membership numbers, we don't go and secretly audit congregations. And I'm not about to do that. So, you know, we're in a relationship with you, and we trust that you're reporting the numbers that are accurate to the best of your ability.
So
Thank you.
thank you, Winnie. Who else? I'm going to unmute the people that are muted on the phone real fast. Who else might have a question for Norrie?
I have a
Yes,
question.
I have a question too.
Let's go with the person at 301-638-2236.
Yes,
Let us know who you
that's
are and what
Jenny
your
Bridges.
congregation is. Say again?
It's Jenny Bridges from Davies, and I apologize for the feedback problem. I'm on a landline and I don't have a mute button.
Got it.
So I've covered up the.
Yep, we are managing it on my end, so don't worry about it now. So go
Okay,
ahead.
and I've covered up my mouthpiece when you asked that. I hope that helps.
Well,
So my question is, that the charges are based on the previous year that is reported. And what happens if your circumstances change drastically in the year in which you are making these payments? How does one handle that?
And just so you know, Norrie, this is a congregation in Maryland.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So we have to take a baseline to ask for the support. We have a mechanism if congregations have a large drop in membership, there is a process that you can go through to have your current ask reduced based on a substantial change in membership. If there was a substantial change in the fiscal health of the congregation, we could certainly, take a look at that. I will say that for the first 3 years in the Southern region, I think half of my time was spent helping people revise what number they had reported because they had reported too much. They hadn't excluded certain things. So we will work with you. In as much as if a congregation suddenly, had a financial change and we were asked based on membership, but we'll do what we can. It will be different. Unlike the current system, it will actually change in the next year if your financial situation changes. So it might be that in that current year, it's difficult, but the next year it will go down, unlike membership, where if you have a financial challenge and your membership stays the same, there will be no change in your ask in the next year. So it's more responsive. It's not real time. And we have to create our budget and get our numbers from there.
And one of the things is, this is, David is speaking for the regional staff with Andrew in Little Coaching. One of the most important things is to let us, your regional staff, your primary contact, know what's happening, so that we can be part of that conversation with you and help it come to a good conclusion. Is that a fair thing to say, Norrie?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one of those times to bring your regional staff person in. And we are a congregation that is the Reverend Megan Foley.
And we are in monthly calls. And certainly if there is something that comes up, be in touch, because we do want to support everybody and we are working on as many resources and tools as possible.
Thank you. Did that get the question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So let's open it back up again. Who else might have a question for Norrie?
I have a question.
So Evelyn Grimm,
Yes.
tell us where you're from.
I'm from Channing Memorial Church in Ellicott City, Maryland.
Yes, you are.
Do you have, has a formula been established so we can calculate an estimate of what it's going to be? And is there going to be a flat percentage rate for everybody? I'm kind of concerned because we have a large budget for a small congregation.
So a couple of responses. Number one, the final formula has not been determined. So what we are looking at, the APF task force, which includes Lucia Santini Field, who's the current financial advisor for the UUA, Larry Ladd, who was the most recent financial advisor for the UUA, has hired a consultant, Dan Brody, who was the financial consultant for the UUA prior to Larry Ladd. So people with deep institutional knowledge about our congregations and our budget needs to look at all of the data. It's very unlikely that it will be a flat percentage. We desperately wanted to keep it simple, and there are things like congregations that are very small with really large budgets. There are all different kinds of outliers. So right now we're kind of looking at how to create a formula that's somewhat reflexive and says, okay, if a congregation spends, I can't speak to it super well at this point. I also know that we're not going to be rolling it out until at least 2019. I mean, it's got a full year of education and tweaking, and one of my favorite gurus, Seth Godin, always says, if you do it right the first time, then you didn't do it right. And we definitely learned that in the southern region where it was a flat percentage. So it's taken longer for that exact reason, that a flat percentage won't work. And Evelyn, if you want to reach out to me and talk about the specifics of your congregation, just so that I can have that when I'm attending those meetings, and that I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you about that, because that's absolutely, we've spent some time trying to solicit information from congregations with really high expense ratios and understand what's causing that, and make sure, if you have a huge RE program, you probably have more staff. And more kids, or if you have more kids in your program, and what does that mean, and how does that impact you? So that geo indexes are other things we're looking at. And like, one question that hasn't been asked, but I've heard quite a bit before in talking about all of this, so I'm just going to ask myself it and then answer it, is why aren't we doing it based on income? And that is because your income is your income. Where, that's not a great tool to calculate a healthy number to ask for, but also we want you to be able to be as empowered as possible to have the most sustainable, thriving congregation. And so we don't look at income.
Thank you, Norrie. Evelyn, was that any follow-up, or is that good?
No, that's fine for now. Thanks.
So let me open back up with those that we have muted and ask if there are any other questions. Any other questions for Norrie? Well, Norrie, I want to thank you very much for coming on and spending this time with us. Everybody give Norrie a hand. So I just want to say, I as someone who also gets these questions, I know the bravery of being willing to come on and talk about this with the Central East region of the UUA is a brave thing. So I just want to say thank you. So I want to take us to, we have about, remember this meeting goes 90 minutes, so we have about 24 minutes left. And I really just wanted to open up the floor. So let me share screen again for a second so that we can see. That's the last part of our meeting is just to spend a little time unmuted talking about what congregational dynamics what dynamics are you seeing in your congregational stewardship? So we've been talking about the association stewardship, how we take care of the association that we built to do the things together that it would be difficult for any congregation to do by themselves. I'd like to hear a little bit about what are you all seeing in some of your stewardship, both challenges, but also maybe some blessings. And I'm going to ask at this time, I'm going to mute everyone, and then I'm going to ask everyone to unmute yourself when you're ready to speak. And I will come back a couple of times just for the people that are on the phone. I'll unmute you and make a space for you all to speak. Any question? I have a question in the chat I'm going to answer really quickly. Let me start the share. So I'm going to mute everyone first. Hang on a second. All right. And then in the chat, we have the question. From Norrie, thank you all. Please feel free to welcome and email me with questions, and I'll be happy to set up a time to talk. Thank you all for your collective generosity. And her email address is in the chat box. We put it in there just a minute ago at ngall@uua.org. So with that, is there anyone who wishes to unmute themselves and talk about how stewardship is going in your congregation? What are the dynamics you're seeing? John, let me, maybe this unmute thing isn't working, but I see John has raised his hand. John, will you tell us your name and where you're from?
John Gummings, Cedar Lane. We, in Bethesda, Maryland.
Hello, John.
Huh?
Hello, John.
Hello. We're in the midst of a drive right now, and things seem to be going really well. I think some people are holding off pledging until they figure out whether they've got a job or not with the big cutbacks in the Washington area that are expected from the Trump administration.
Right. I can imagine how that is an anxiety that is happening in our DC area congregations.
Yep.
Thank you. So do you all know how to mute and unmute? So to unmute yourself, you can either click on your own face and hit unmute, or you can at the bottom, if you're on a PC or I think a Mac, at the bottom left-hand corner, you can mute or unmute. So, and if you're having trouble and you're on video, wave your hand and I will mute or unmute you. So is there anyone else who would like to share?
I can. It's Winnie again.
Hello, Winnie. Please go ahead. How are things going in York?
The first part of our stewardship campaign was sensational, all kinds of increased pledges. We had an interim momentum campaign because we're in the middle of a search to raise our pledge base, but now we're having trouble with the last chunk. We've got the leadership, they're coming in, but the last chunk of people is like pulling teeth. And for some reason we have to address still, we totally missed our RE group. I think because they're also busy teaching, because we've lost volunteers over the last couple of years, we didn't get downstairs to talk to them. So we're gonna have a plan to get down there. And we did not give enough time to our stewardship campaign because we had so many other things going on. So we've learned all kinds of stuff for next year, but it's very clear if you do it right, there is potential, and we're looking forward to having our first mission-based budget this year.
Well, thank you very much. That's wonderful, Winnie. And so exciting for you all with coming up on the search selections and announcements. So it's very exciting. So thank you.
Enough money to pay for them.
So who else might like to share?
Hi, this is Patrina from River Road in Bethesda.
Hello, Patrina. How are you?
Good. So we are in the midst of our stewardship campaign, and we're trying a few different things this year. We're trying to be a little bit more comfortable with talking about money, and we're doing a thing with transparency. So there's giant plastic birds on our bridge that represent the sizes of the different levels of giving. Not exactly sure how that's actually corresponding to it, whether there's an increase or not. I think we'll find out a little bit later, but we're just trying to get people a little bit more comfortable talking about money because UUs are notorious for not wanting to say anything about their giving and finance, and we're really quick to recognize volunteers for their efforts, but not the monetary contributions.
So thank you for sharing about that. I'm going to have to come down there to see the birds. That sounds interesting. Thank you very much. Who else would like to share? I see Howard, and let me help you unmute Howard. Go ahead.
Okay, hi David. Yep. So just to share, so we're at the tail end of our pledge drive, and we had a great opening. We called this Celebration Sunday. We provided a meal for everyone. We had testimonials, skits, music, the whole deal, right? And it was a great celebration. I wish I could say that has translated into a more successful pledge or stewardship drive so far. You know, we're kind of running into the same challenges that we often do, and we've been doing our usual follow-ups, calling everybody that has not responded and thanking everyone that has, and even asking for, not an official second ask, but following up with everyone that has donated to ask again if they could kick that up, right? So we're doing the usual. It's a little frustrating, but it is every year. But that's kind of where we are right now.
Thank you, Howard. So I'm going to unmute the people that are on the phone and give them an opportunity to share. So is there anyone who is on the phone with us who would like to share what is happening with the stewardship campaign in your congregation?
Well, I will a little bit. This is Ginny Bridges again from Davies.
Yes. Go ahead, Ginny.
We have not really started our campaign this year. We have a fellowship dinner scheduled on April 8th, and we'll be talking about it leading up to that, and then we'll accept pledges on April 8th and then do the follow-up that we always have to do to get those people who don't seem to get around to turning in pledge cards. We have a sort of an unusual, we have an interim minister who is going to be leading us, and we're not exactly sure what next year is going to be. So that makes it, it's important that we have good pledges, but it's a little bit harder to present the ask for that. Plus, we have some new members, and that's wonderful, but new members tend to pledge on the low side. When they get more involved with the congregation, then the pledges slowly increase. And I think we've had the same issue that someone mentioned about RE, and I think part of that is that the people with all the children have greater expenses, and so it's harder for them to pledge significant amounts. So anyway, that's where we are.
Thank you very much. And so anybody else on the phone would like to share? If not, we'll go ahead and open it back up to anyone else on the call would like to share about how things are going with your, and not just how your current campaign is going. It could be about stewardship in general. It could be, we just had this major special ask to, buy a new building or something, or whatever it could be. I know my favorite campaign I ever ran was to put a new floor in the fellowship hall. So whatever it might be how is stewardship in general going in your congregation?
David George Banziger from
Hello, George.
First UUA Society in Marietta, Ohio. We just completed a successful annual pledge drive and learned 3 days ago we exceeded our goal. So we did a kind of anatomy of success, try to figure out what to do next year to continue some success and maybe do something different. But this year we had a series of pledge dinners that worked fairly well. But we had some discussion about whether to have a series of dinners next year or a single attention-grabbing event. So after some discussion, we decided to have a talent show as a single event and bring people together in a rented facility and launch our pledge drive in that way. Two other notes. We are also looking at doing some program-based budgeting. And Beth Casebold has been helpful in giving me some examples of how to establish a program-based budget that might explain to the congregation exactly how your money is used rather than the typical line item budget. The other thing we're going to look at is how to make the case for our annual pledge throughout the year rather than in a 4 to 6 week blitz that we usually run from late January to early March. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you very much, George. Who else might like to share?
This is Carol Walker again. This is when I didn't have anything fantastic to say, but one thing about the RE people being left out, our stewardship chair has come up with a very creative thing to make it. They have had for the past 2 years a breakfast. Everybody from the board chair to children participate in making waffles and having a breakfast. and that allows families to come and join, and also RE teachers to come and join, because we have it in the building where we have our RE classes. Paint Branch has 2 buildings, a meeting house and an RE building, and I think that might be a way of engaging maybe the RE folks. Just an idea.
It's an interesting idea, Carol. Thank you. And just so everybody knows, that's Paint Branch. It's Paint Branch UU congregation in Adelphi, Maryland. So who else might have? For a second, I'm gonna bring all of open it back up for our people that are on the phone to see if any of them would like to share. Anybody on the phone would like to share? Hearing none, I'll open it back up to anyone else who would like to talk about how stewardship is going in your congregation. And if y'all are done, which is rare that UUs don't want to talk, but if you all are done, we can go a little bit early.
UUs do like to go early.
So hearing none, I'm going to say thank you all. It's been wonderful to have you all with us. Before we go, I've got 2 more resources I want to name around stewardship. The first one is our stewardship program manager for the Central East region, who you all met a little earlier, is Patricia Infante. Now we have two program managers that are related to stewardship. But Pat, you have the stewardship that happens inside the congregation, right?
David.
And then Andrea has the stewardship of our congregations to support the wider association. So just so you know that those are of our regional staff, some resources that's available for you all that you can reach out to either directly or through your primary contact. So your congregation's primary contact, we all have some ability to help you all on issues of stewardship. And the Unitarian Universalist Association has partnered with an organization called Stewardship for Us. Stewardshipforus.com is where you can find them. They are a stewardship consulting firm that can help you with everything from thinking through the best annual pledge campaign ever to running a capital campaign to doing special asks. And we're blessed in the Central East region that quite a few of their consultants already live in our region. So unless there are final questions or anything. So with that, I want to close us this evening with our closing reading, which is, I chose it because it's an expression of covenant. We've been talking about stewardship and how we have a covenantal commitment to support each other, to support the association, and to support Unitarian Universalism and our place in our work in the world. And one of the congregations I used to serve as a minister was the Unitarian Church of Evanston, Illinois, where in that congregation they have a covenant that they say in worship every Sunday that goes back to the late 1800s. And some of you may be familiar with it. It was written for that congregation in Evanston. It's called the James Villa Blake Covenant. And it says, it goes like this: love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you all for coming to be on this call, and thank you for your contributions to the annual program fund, which is one of the ways that we all help one another. Have a wonderful evening.
Amen. Good.
And be well.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.